Beyond Fear podcast.
Welcome back to the Beyond Fear podcast. And today we're diving into something I've been using quietly behind the scenes, and now I think it's time to talk about it properly. AI coaching. Yep, the robots are here, but not in the way you might think. Whether you're training for your first sprint triathlon, building towards an ultra, or just trying to stay consistent without burning out, tools like ChatGPT are becoming genuinely useful for athletes like us. And in this episode, I'm going to walk you through how I use AI to build and adapt training, reflect on sessions, make decisions when I'm stuck, and why I think this isn't just a gimmick, but part of the future of coaching. So let's start with the basics. So when people hear AI coach, they imagine this robotic system giving you a generic plan or shouting numbers at you like a Garmin on steroids. But AI coaching, specifically ChatGPT, is more like having a smart training partner who listens to your context and helps you think clearly. It's not trying to replace your instincts or tell you what to do blindly. It's helping you organize your thoughts, look at your training objectively, and spot the gaps you're too tired or too emotionally involved to see clearly. It doesn't replace a coach, but if you're self-coaching, it is an absolute game changer. When you give ChatGPT the right information, like what you're training for, how many sessions you can realistically do, and what has worked or not worked before, it can start acting like a really responsive coach. It's not just writing a plan, it's helping you adapt that plan when, life happens. And that's what most age groupers need. It's not someone to shout instructions, but someone to ask, how's your body feeling today? And, what's changed? The better your prompts, the better the support. And when you've got a tool that listens without judgment and helps you build forward, it's a bit addictive. It's not perfect, but it is powerful, especially like when you start talking to it like a coach, not just a chatbot. And AI works so well for triathletes and ultra runners because, we're already used to that complexity. We don't train just in straight lines. We're balancing swim, bike, run, fatigue from long days, terrain, weather, fueling, then start and transition. So when you drop that into a conversation with ChatGPT, you can get real clarity, not just about what to do, but why you're doing it. You might say, I've got a hilly 50K in 10 weeks and I've missed my long run, but my quads are absolutely wrecked. What's the smart move? And instead of spiraling, you get a way forward. And that's where AI fits. It doesn't replace your brain. It supports your decision-making when you're too close to it all. Most training plans are static. You download them. So week 1 to week 12, off you go. But what if you get sick in week 3? What if your kids off school in week 5? What if your motivation just tanks in week 7? Traditional plans, they don't care. They just assume you're fine. AI lets you adjust. You can literally say, I missed my long ride. Should I shuffle this week or let it go? Or you might say, I've had 3 bad sleeps in a row. Should I still do the threshold session? That flexibility means you're more likely to stick with it because it's built with your real life in mind. And that's what the difference is. It makes that difference between consistency and burnout. Planning a 12-week training block used to take me hours of spreadsheet, session planning, comparing templates and working out what's going to be best. Now I just start a conversation with ChatGPT. I'll say I'm training for an Olympic triathlon. I've got 6 to 7 hours a week. I want to improve my run off the bike and I need recovery week every 4th week. And it will give me a plan with logic, structure, and progression. Then I can tweak it, shift sessions, ask for replacement, add strength or bricks or yoga. And to be honest, I spend most of my time arguing with my GPT coach Miles. And when life throws a curveball, I can come back and say, okay, missed this week, how do I get back on track? How often have you guessed your way through, especially in recovery? Like if you're anything like me, sometimes I think, should I ride easy? Should I skip it? Am I being lazy or smart? Now, ChatGPT, I just ask, here's my last few sessions. Based on that, what kind of recovery does my body actually need today? And it reflects back what I already kind of know, but seeing it in words helps me trust that decision, because recovery isn't weakness. It's that bit that actually makes you fitter. You just need help giving it the same respect that you do with the hard stuff. One of the hardest parts of endurance training is getting fueling right? Especially if you've struggled with like gut issues or just body image. And AI doesn't judge. You can say, here's what I ate on my long run. I bonked up mile 9. What might have I done wrong? It can break down the carb content, the timing, and even give you options for you next time. It's not a dietitian, but it is a great starting point to get curious, adjust, and actually learn from your own training. And that's a superpower like most athletes overlook. In triathlon, we don't reflect enough. We just upload to Strava, we tick the box, and we move on. But using ChatGPT as a reflection tool has really changed my game. I write things like, here's what I did, here's how I felt, here's my heart rate and my pace. What does that tell me? And it helps me spot patterns. It'll help spot fatigue creeping in, or pacing too hard, poor fueling, emotional stress. It's like having a coach who always has time to ask, what did you learn from that session? Even when you didn't really stop to ask it. Also, when I'm feeling flat, I open ChatGPT like a diary. I don't feel like I'm training, I missed a few sessions, I'm doubting myself. And it doesn't say, man up or no excuses, or, imagine how this other athlete feels they're doing much more than you, which, that is actually a true response I had from another coach. It says, let's look at what's going on. Here's a gentle way forward. Sometimes, it reminds me why I care. Sometimes it helps me pivot my plan, and sometimes it helps me feel heard when my, brain is just full of noise. AI doesn't have feelings, but somehow it helps you get back in touch with yours. And training isn't just physical, it's emotional, mental, hormonal, motivational. You can ask ChatGPT things like, how can I stop panicking in open water? Or why do I get anxious about long runs? And it will coach you through it. It's not therapy, but it's a space where you can be honest and get structured, practical strategies back. That's what makes it useful. Not that it knows everything, but that it helps you make sense of what you already know and what you're still figuring out. I get asked, what's the best platform for AI coaching right now? And, honestly, it's still ChatGPT. There are loads of platforms popping up with like AI coaching in the label, and some are really quite interesting, but most are still fairly basic because they don't fully respond to you. Even the ones that are starting to take like metrics into account for your training, they don't get the full picture of what's going on like in your head as well. ChatGPT wins because you can train it. You can tell it your context, your goal, how much you train, your history, what's worked before. And it starts learning your patterns. And that's the key difference. It's not clicking a button for a plan. It's building a real evolving conversation that grows with you. So one of the combinations I keep coming back to is TrainingPeaks with ChatGPT. That is next level planning. TrainingPeaks is brilliant for structure. It's got your calendar, your zones, you're syncing to your watch, but it doesn't help you decide what to do or why. And ChatGPT fills that gap. You can ask it, build me a 12-week build for my 7.3. Of course, remembering to be as detailed as possible, or by following the my free breakthrough week course. But you can ask even simpler questions like, what sessions would balance this week of training? Then drop the sessions straight into TrainingPeaks, and off you go. It's the best of both worlds. You're getting human creativity, but with smart structure. When I used to plan my training blocks in big blocks, like 12 or 16 weeks ahead, it was all right. But with AI, I'm far more agile. So like every Sunday or Monday, I'll sit down, open ChatGPT and say, here's what my last week looked like. Here's what I found. Here's what's coming up. And I've got like 7 hours to train this week. What's going to be the smartest use of my time? it's like having an assistant coach who already knows what you've done and helps you make that next best decision. So I'm frequently asked like, what's coming up next in AI coaching, and right now, like, AI coaching is still quite reactive. It waits for you to give it info, but we are on the edge of a shift. So soon, your watch, your HRV data, your sleep, your nutrition logs, it'll all feed into one system. It's inevitable. That system will say, Jen, you didn't sleep well, so today's session is actually going to be X instead. Garmin, Strava, TrainingPeaks, someone is going to launch it. Smart real-time coaching that truly adapts to you. It sounds like science fiction, but it's really not. And to be honest, wouldn't be surprised, 2026, it'll revolutionize triathlon training once that's launched. So another question I'm asked, will AI ever replace, real coaches? No, but it will challenge what coaching means. So if as a coach, I just give you a plan, AI is already doing that better and faster. Although at the moment ChatGPT can't actually create sessions that sync to your watch, some other AI platforms can, but then, they don't take the psychological side and adaptations into account quite as well as like chat does. But if a coach is a mirror, a guide, or a source of accountability and perspective, that's where humans win. This can pose a threat to coaches. If they purely coach on data and numbers and not the human behind those numbers, they're going to find themselves in trouble. But the future isn't coach versus AI, it's coach plus AI, or even self-coached plus AI. Either way, the athlete wins because, you're more informed, you're more supported, and more in control of your journey and experience within triathlon. So going over to the Q&A, is it safe to really rely on AI for your training? Yes, if you remember what it is. AI is a tool, it is not a guru. It can't see your face, it can't read your mood, it can't feel your knees. So no, don't blindly follow every AI suggestion like gospel, but if you treat it like a thinking partner, something to challenge your assumptions and spark better questions, then yeah, it's safe. I often have discussions when I'm finalizing my thoughts. I'll ask it to critique my last few responses or give me a psychological profiling based on my previous 10 questions. It can in fact be, it might be the most empowering tool you've ever used. You're still the captain. AI just literally makes the map easier to read. So I hope that answers that. What is the biggest red flag to watch for? Well, the biggest mistake I see is athletes trying to sound too perfect in their prompts. Like, give me the best 10K for someone who trains 6 days a week and eats clean. It's not real life. Tell the truth. I'm inconsistent. I skip runs when my kid is sick. I overtrain when I get stressed. That's how you get good responses. Honest inputs, honest reflection, better planning. The red flag isn't bad advice. It's pretending you're a robot. You're not. You're human. AI's a robot. Let that meet you there. Next one, do I need to be techie to start using AI as a coach? No, you don't need to understand prompts, macros, APIs, how ChatGPT works, nothing like that. Just talk to it like you're texting a coach. I'm training for my first triathlon. I can swim and bike okay, but running's my struggle. I've got 6 hours a week and no time on Thursdays. What do you suggest? That is enough. The biggest block is thinking you have to do AI right. You don't. You just have to start talking. And if it gets it wrong or you get it wrong, you just say, no, let's start again. And if you're new to AI, just remember I do have my free Breakthrough Week course, which helps you set up your ChatGPT account so it responds perfectly for you and your training. I'll leave the link in this podcast. So next one, how do I use AI without losing my intuition? Oof, nice one. Well, there's a sweet spot between trusting AI and trusting your gut. I'd say I use it to lay out the plan and then tune in and adjust. So if your legs are heavy, take an extra rest day. If your motivation is through the roof, bank a bonus session. You can always screenshot sessions like with your heart rate and your data into ChatGPT and say how you feel and ask for an assessment on whether you need to change things, even if it's just for reassurance. Just Don't override your body in the name of following the script. Let AI kind of hold the structure, but let intuition hold the steering wheel. That combination, that's where like consistency, joyful, enjoyable training really starts. So going on to where do I start with AI coaching? Breakthrough Week is a free course and a great start, but besides that, just start with a single prompt. Something like, I'm training for a half marathon in 12 weeks. I've been running 3 times a week. Can you ask me questions to help build a plan around that? Then, tweak it, ask questions, ask it to ask you questions as well. Add to your story. It's not about building the perfect plan on day one. It's about realizing you don't have to do this alone anymore. The future of training is a conversation. And now you've got someone to talk to 24/7 who knows your goal and never gets tired of helping. So to round up, that is like 20 ways AI is already changing how we train for triathlon and ultra running. Not in a scary, robots are taking over kind of way, but like a real, personal, actually useful way that helps you think clearer, plan smarter, and adapt faster. It's not about replacing your instincts, replacing your coach unless you want to. It's about upgrading your toolkit. So if this episode got you curious, try it. Open ChatGPT, type something messy and human, tell it who you are and what you're working towards. And if you're stuck, I've got prompts, walkthroughs, and training templates that will help you all get started. They are completely free in the Breakthrough Week course. Thank you for tuning in. I will drop a link to the course in the show notes. Let me know what resonated with you on today's podcast, what you're trying and what you want to hear next. And hey, the future of coaching is about to get super exciting in the coming seasons. I'll see you on the next one. Crack on.